Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Today we have ourselves another jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of Southern California sports, such as the Chargers getting the win over the Texans. It was a little ugly, but they are back in the win column and they're back at 500. Now can they get by the Browns as they have to face Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Nick Chubb, and all those other talented physical bruisers? And the Rams, once again fall to the Niners. Jimmy G still has their number. I admit they do. Can they rebound against the Dallas Cowboys? Or will they be under 500 for the first time since early in the season? Also, the Dodgers and Padres have both made the playoffs. They're both about to start the postseason real soon. But Angel City, sadly, is out of the playoffs. What happened? What was the reason for them not making the playoffs? Also, the NBA and NHL are starting soon, as I'll probably talk a little about that. We also have some high school football to get into, as Mater Dei and St. John Bosco face one another tonight. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this Friday afternoon. Sorry, getting my words mixed up here as I'm basically getting every day mixed up. Either way, you have made your way into episode 107 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Without any further delay, let's get on into the Southern California sports action. But first and foremost, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show and any other show on IE Sports Radio would not be where it is without IE Sports Radio itself. You can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. Also, IE Sports Radio has a website, www.iesportsradio.com, and when you go there, you'll find a Patreon link at the top, which starts out at $5 a month. This will get you a shout-out from all of our shows, including this one, and higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. With your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Marcus Losgreat, Key to the Gate, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. Alright, now let's get on into the Southern California sports action. So, let's start off with some football. And we have quite a bit of football to get into, as we have the NFL, we have college football, and then I'm going to obviously discuss Mater Dei versus St. John Bosco, because that's obviously the biggest cash cow in terms of, non-NFL football. But either way, start off with some Chargers football against the Texans. So the Chargers obviously got back into the win column. I saw a good portion of this game. I didn't see all of it, but I will say it was not the prettiest game. I mean, early on in the first half, the Chargers were just rolling over the competition. Like they were basically steamrolling the Texans as they should, and there was no doubt the Chargers were looking like their dominant self despite all the injuries they've suffered. And before I continue, I did get word, I think from Ian Rappaport, saying that he believes that Rashawn Slater could be back before the season, and his bicep injury isn't season-ending. If he does get back by the time, let's say, like week 16 or week 17 or 18 roll around, and the Chargers are still vying for a playoff spot or have made the playoffs, then I'm all forcing Rashawn Slater back. But if the Chargers aren't anywhere near a playoff spot or they've been eliminated, heaven forbid, then they just got to shut Slater down and just let him rehab and let him take his rehab slow. So, in terms of Rashawn Slater's substitute, I forget the Jamari Salyer was the guy that basically stepped up for Rashawn Slater at left tackle, and he did really well. He actually blocked well. He allowed no sacks. I don't think he even allowed a pressure as well. So I really think that Jamari Salyer was an underrated pick. He is a left tackle. I think he played left tackle at Georgia. He obviously played at Georgia, but I want to say he shifted around the offensive line. He went from left tackle to right tackle. Now he's back to left tackle. And he really did well for the Chargers in the game against the Texans. So I really think that he's done wonders, and I think that might have been a sneaky good pick for the Chargers late in their most recent draft. So the Chargers were up 27-6 at halftime. I was thinking, all right, Chargers just got to put this thing, they just got to continue to score whenever they can. They have to not do stupid things. Their defense actually has to come up big. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Chargers' defense didn't get the moment. Well, their offense, in the defense of the Chargers, the offense just could not get anything. It was very frustrating just because I don't know what Joe Lombardi is doing. Like, whatever he was doing in the first half, he did not do in the second half. They kept giving the ball to Sonny Michel. That was not good. They need to give the ball to Joshua Kelly and Austin Eckler. I don't understand why the Chargers veered away from what they were doing perfectly in the first half as opposed to switching it up in the second half. I get it. You want to keep your opponent on your toes and you don't want to do the same thing. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just keep doing what you're doing in terms of what is helping you win. Because basically this changed the whole dynamic. Chargers kept going 3-and-out and, well, not like 3-and-out, but they kept punting the ball away. And eventually, the Texans did find the end zone as this dude right here, Damon Pierce, he really exposed the Chargers' piss-poor run defense. And in addition, Davis Mills wasn't too terrible, but he wasn't the greatest. He wasn't like in his first meeting last year when the Chargers and the Texans met last year, which was obviously an ugly game. But overall, the Mills threw 2 for 2 touchdowns, and I want to say after the second touchdown, which got the Texans to within 6, the Chargers fumbled the ball on the kickoff return, and the Texans had a chance to basically tie or take the lead. Fortunately for the Chargers, their defense bent, but it didn't break, which only gave up 3 points. And the Chargers really needed to get it going in the fourth quarter. And they did. They eventually did. They chewed up a lot of clock, and they eventually got another touchdown as Justin Herbert found Austin Eckler for his third touchdown of the day. So Eckler was huge. Finally, we got to see some flashes of Austin Eckler. We did not get to see just the passing game. Eckler had 2 rushing touchdowns, and he also had a passing touchdown, which was basically off of a screen pass. He also converted a huge 4th-and-1 off of a screen pass from Herbert. I really thought Austin Eckler really showed out, and everyone who was saying Austin Eckler might be the biggest fantasy draft bust in the world, well, you're starting to eat crow. Sorry. Anyway, the Chargers defense eventually closed out the game, and they eventually beat the Texans, which I'm so glad they won that one. If the Chargers had lost to the Texans, it kind of would have been disastrous, honestly. It would not have been good. And for them to go 1-3 into Cleveland, then Denver, then Seattle, even if they were to go 4-3 before the bye, it would not have been a good 4-3. Now they have the potential of going 5-2, and looking at their schedule, it looks doable. Because next up, they're at Cleveland to take on the Browns. It's definitely a winnable game, but they can't underestimate Nick Chubb. Just because he's definitely a good running back, and honestly, based on how a rookie Damon Pierce was able to run right through the Chargers' run defense, I really think that the Chargers really need to plug up the run game. I really have my concerns for the Chargers going into this game against the Browns. They have to fix it, and I feel they're going to be in a high-scoring affair. Last year, that was the case, as both teams combined for over 90 points, and fortunately for the Chargers, they were able to squeak out the win, despite some questionable calls from the Zebras. But overall, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I really feel the Chargers can win this one, though. There's no Deshaun Watson. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. But this is a Browns team that lost to the Falcons. And here's the thing about the Chargers taking on the Browns. The Chargers are going to be the first high-powered offense that the Browns are going to be placing. The previous times, their first game, it was against Carolina. Then the previous game, that was against the Jets. Then they played the Steelers with Mitch Trubisky, which was not that good. And then they obviously played the Falcons, all of which were not all that good in terms of their offenses. Now they play a Chargers team with a very talented quarterback in Justin Herbert, and obviously a good running back in Austin Eckler. I just feel this has the makings of a high-scoring affair. Before we get on into my preview or my final score prediction of Chargers-Browns, Keenan Allen is looking like he's not going to be playing this week, and that's a big loss. I guess he suffered a setback last week, which disallowed him to play against the Texans. And it really sucks because having Keenan Allen would be huge for the Chargers. Gives them another big threat, and they don't have to rely on Mike Williams a whole lot, as well as some of the other receivers. In addition, it looks like Dustin Hopkins is going to be 50-50 for this matchup against the Browns, just because he had a quad injury and he was limited in the previous two practices. I'm not sure what the status is on the Chargers injury report as of right now, just because as of this point in time of this recording, we have not seen the injury report for Friday from the Chargers. And then Donald Parham looks like he's going to be playing the tight end. We will get to see him, though I think Gerald Everett has adapted well as the tight end one. But Parham gives more blocking ability to the Chargers, which is what they really need considering the Chargers O-line is lacking. Though it wasn't bad. They didn't allow any sacks, which I think is promising. I really think that the Chargers can get the job done against the Browns, though facing Myles Garrett is going to be a tough task. Garrett is going to be active. I don't think he played last week against Atlanta, and now this week it's going to be very tough. And whoever matches up with Myles Garrett is in for a rough ride. Jadeveon Clowney is also questionable. That could also be a very tough match. That's going to be a very tough matchup on the O-line for the Chargers. So it's really going to have to we may have to see Justin Herbert run with the ball quite a bit. Or the O-line is going to have to probably create more holes. It's going to be tough, though, just because, like I said, they've got lots of big boys on that defensive line, the Browns do. And I think they also have Grant Delpit, who obviously did not play his rookie year because of an injury that he suffered in training camp. But I think it's just going to be another target to watch for. So we're probably going to see the Chargers air it out a whole lot more. And if that's the case, we're going to have to see Mike Williams step up. I mean, he wasn't bad. He actually was good against the Texans last weekend. I think he's done better ever since that dreadful Week 1 outing against the Raiders. But overall, it's going to be really tough. I think this one's going to be a lot tougher than it needs to be. And I also feel that the Chargers can't look ahead to next week when they face the Denver Broncos, their division rival. But a little bit on that later. But for the Browns, their offense obviously consists of Amari Cooper, who I feel... I want to look at the Browns' injury report. I feel he wasn't... he was limited in terms of... getting back on track. It's going to obviously be difficult to play in the Dawg Pount, just because the Browns do have quite a... They have good coaches, obviously, with Kevin Stefanski, and then obviously they have some really talented personnel. This is not going to be anywhere easy by any means, but we'll see what happens. As well, another defensive player to also watch out for is Greedy Williams, as he just returned to practice. Yes, Greedy Williams, I understand. Y'all are probably wondering, well, what's so special about Greedy Williams? But back to Amari Cooper. I guess Amari Cooper is going to be playing. I feel he is going to play, and I don't think he's going to want to miss this game for the world. I really think that I think he's going to do everything in his power to play, whether he has an injury designation or not, just because it would not be good for him to miss the game against the Chargers, just because it would give the Browns one less option. And last week he obviously had a disappointing game, but that was because the Browns ran the ball a lot more. I don't know why they didn't really throw a whole lot to like Amari Cooper and all those other receivers, but the fact that they just ran the ball way more than they needed to, well, that's interesting to say the least. So what the Chargers need to do in order to win is they have to clog up the run game. They have to make sure the Browns don't get their way. Obviously their run defense is not that great, and obviously they're missing Joey Bosa, but they're going to need to play lights out. And even if Jacoby Brissett does want to throw, they got to get pressure on him as well, and pressure on whoever has the rock. Basically, they have to limit the run. They have to limit the run game, and they have to get pressure on Jacoby Brissett. And they have to come up big on third down. I can't imagine how many times the Chargers whiffed on third downs, but I feel that's starting to improve. So we'll see what happens with the Browns. I'm going to see the Chargers win this one 35-28. I feel it's going to be high scoring. I feel the there's not going to be a whole lot of defense. I could go even higher than 35-28, but I feel that's about as respectable as it gets, just because these two are really high-powered in terms of their offenses, and I feel the Chargers are starting to get it together offensively. Yes, not having Keenan Allen is going to be difficult, but obviously they make up for it with other good players, such as Austin Eckler, and then Justin Herbert starting to get better, healthier. I really think that he's starting to heal up from his rib injury, and if he's still injured, then honestly, bully for him. He really stepped up big time when he got hurt in that game against Jacksonville, and ever since he got hurt, he has put up some decent numbers. Like against Jacksonville, he almost had 300 passing yards. It's just that he wasn't mobile enough. This week, it looks like Herbert is off the injury report, depending on what the final injury report has to say. I really think that it's going to be... Yeah, Justin Herbert was full in terms of practices on Thursday and Wednesday. So if he's full practice on Friday, he should be off the injury report. But obviously, broken rib cartilage is no joke, but it looks like he's persevering well from that. So that is going to do it for the Chargers portion of the show. Let's jump on over to the Rams. And unfortunately for the Rams, not a whole lot has changed when it comes to facing the Niners. The Rams still can't beat the Niners in the regular season when Jimmy G is quarterback. It kind of makes me wish that Trey Lance didn't get hurt, but it still makes me wonder. Like, Deebo Samuel just was Deebo Samuel. And then the defense really showed up. Even Talanoa Hufanga had a pick six on Matt Stafford. And the former USC star defensively is starting. Everyone was comparing him to the next Troy Polamalu. And it's like, let's pump the brakes here. Yes, he's a star, and yes, I respect him. But I don't think we could put him in the category of Troy Polamalu just yet. That being said, I really think that the Niners really showed up, and obviously it's tough to win at Levi's South. It has been the house of horrors for the Rams in years past. So for the Rams, this was kind of a humbling experience, and they also didn't score a touchdown. I think it was like the first time since the 2018 season when they lost to the Bears, I want to say. Question mark, question mark. Either way, the Rams are basically back to the drawing board as the O-line has just been so beaten up. It continues to get beaten up as they lost their starting center, which really did not do them any favors for the Niners against these big boys such as Nick Bosa, not Joey Bosa. I almost said Joey Bosa, but it's Nick Bosa. Players such as Nick Bosa and, like I said, Talanoa Hufanga. And then it just did not help that they were settling for 3. Obviously, you want to take the points, but you have to but it gets to a point where you have to eventually find more ways to get touchdowns, even if it means rolling the dice and risking it for the biscuit. But either way, the Rams are 2-2, and fun fact, every week this week has seen one LA team win and the other lose. Week 1, we saw the Chargers win, but the Rams lose. Week 2, we saw the Chargers lose, but the Rams win. Week 3, we saw the Chargers lose, but the Rams win. And then last week in Week 4, we saw the Chargers win, but the Rams lose. This week is going to be an interesting game. So the Rams play the Dallas Cowboys at SoFi Stadium on Sunday. So they're back at home, which I think is a relief. I really think the Rams could win this one, but here's the interesting thing. They're starting Cooper Rush, and surprisingly, Cooper Rush has done really well for the Cowboys as of late. This is kind of concerning, but I feel this is going to be the Rams or the Cowboys' biggest test, especially with with Cooper Rush facing players such as Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Leonard Floyd is out, I want to say, for a couple weeks, maybe 2 to 4 weeks. So that's a big loss right there. So for the Rams, they're just going to have everyone step up. I understand they're banged up, not only on the offensive line, but somewhat defensively. But I really think that the Rams really need to have the next man up mentality. I mean, look at what the Chargers are going through when it comes to their O-line and all the injuries they've sustained. They're not making excuses for it, at least not yet, of course. So against the Cowboys, it's going to be interesting because I also did see that CeeDee Lamb popped up on the injury list, and I want to say was limited, if not, he didn't practice yesterday. Either way, that's something to monitor. For the Rams, I really need them to step up. Their offense has to step up, and this could be the battle of two defenses actually taking on one another and basically limiting the offense. I really think that the Rams defense is for real, and I really think they can get to Cooper Rush sooner rather than later. But the problem is, can Cooper Rush get rid of the ball soon enough to his targets, such as Michael Gallup and CeeDee Lamb and all those other no-name receivers that I probably don't know of. And then also got to watch for the run game. Ezekiel Elliott obviously hasn't been the greatest, but I feel this is this might be his game to try to possibly get back on track in terms of the running game. This is going to be a very tricky matchup. I really think that this could come down to the wire here. I'm going to say the Rams win 24-21. I think that's a respectable score just because both these teams have stellar defenses, and I feel we're going to see at least maybe 10 sacks between the two teams combined. That's just my little hot take right there, but I feel the Rams win this one 24-21. I'd be more comfortable if Dak was playing, but Cooper Rush, man, he is 4-0 in his first 4 starts. That's just crazy right there. No other Dallas Cowboys quarterback has been 4-0 in their first 4 starts. Obviously, he had that win last year when the Cowboys played the Vikings. But for him to have, 3 straight wins against... Okay, the Bengals were still figuring things out. I don't know how they beat... Okay, the Giants aren't as good as everyone thinks they are. I'm sorry to say this, Giants fans, but I think the Cowboys were much better than the Giants. And then, obviously, they beat Washington, which, no offense to Commanders fans, but Washington's not that good, especially not offensively, and their defense is starting to become more leaky. But anyway, back to the Rams. I think the Rams need this win more than anything. They really need to win this game. If they don't, then they'll get further and further behind the NFC West, just because the NFC West is a tight race. Every team is 2-2, including the Seahawks. But for the Rams, it just means that their margin of error is going to have to be more and more limited, just because if this is the competitiveness of the NFC West, then I'd hate to see the competitiveness of every other team in the NFC. But I really think the Rams do have a good team. They're just going to have to have the offensive line step up, whoever is in for some of the offensive players. But overall, we'll have to see what happens. So that's going to do it for the NFL portion of this show. Let's jump on over to some college football. And, oh my goodness, UCLA, you proved me wrong. And congratulations. So, last week I predicted UCLA, truthfully, was going to lose to Washington, and then I was proven wrong. I am disappointed to say... Okay, I'm not disappointed, but I'm disappointed in myself for not having more faith in UCLA. And as a result, they really proved me wrong. And I admit, I will own up to this. The UCLA is for real, and as a result of them beating Washington 40-32, they are now ranked in the top 25 coaches poll. So all you UCLA fans, you could stop clamoring about how your team is not ranked and they should be ranked. So this week, UCLA gets another big test as they face Utah, and here's some quick tidbits from my good buddy James H. Williams, and he actually covers UCLA football, and he does a stellar job, by the way. So, one fact about UCLA football is that they haven't really fared well against... they have not fared well against Utah in the past. I want to say they've lost the past 5 meetings against the Utes, which is not good. However, it does not mean that we should lose faith. I think this UCLA team is decent. I think this UCLA team is for real. Obviously, when you beat I wouldn't call them a really good ranked team, but I really think if you beat a talented Washington team, but I did not know this. No opposing team had sacked Michael Penix Jr. before UCLA did. And by the way, can I also just say that Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or DTR, he actually had amazing. He had this amazing little stop and pop move at the goal line. He kept the ball, and then as he was about to trot into the end zone, two defenders were about to come at him, and then he just stopped and then he hit the brakes and then pulled it back, and then he pulled it back, and then the two Washington defenders collided with one another, and then he just trotted his way into the end zone. I thought that was very impressive, and overall, it was just a very good win for UCLA. Overall, I really think that the Bruins are now for real, and I wish I knew how many times Utah has lost to UCLA, or Utah has beaten UCLA, but I really think that this is going to be a challenge for the Bruins. I don't want to pick against UCLA again, but at the same time, if I do, I'm going to eat more crow. I just really think that everyone is hyping up Utah as one of the better teams in the Pac-12, and they're all saying, some are even saying that Cam Rising is better than Caleb Williams. So, Utah is 4-1 with their only loss being against a talented Florida team, but outside of that, they've basically crushed most of their opponents. Yes, they crushed Southern Utah, but we don't care about that. Outside of that, they've beaten practically every team by a good, reasonable chunk. They beat San Diego State by 28, they beat Arizona State by 21, and they beat Oregon State by, hold on, let me do my math here, 27. I'm sorry, no, not 27, 26. My apologies, not the sharpest at math. So, sorry about that. So, tomorrow, the two teams play at the Rose Bowl, and this is going to be quite the interesting matchup. I really think UCLA can match up well against Utah, but I think Utah has a little bit more firepower in their arsenal. And obviously with Cam Rising being such a talented quarterback, I really think it's going to be a difficult task for the Bruins to stack up to. In terms of the run game, Tavion Thomas has done wonders for the Utes. And then as for their run game, or their receiving core, Davon Vele has done well. He leads the team in receiving yards. Dalton Kincaid. Oh, actually, no. Dalton Kincaid, I want to say, is out for the season. I think it's Dalton Kincaid, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of Utah's top tight ends, but it's one of the tight ends that Utah had, and I guess it's not Dalton Kincaid, as it's the other tight end. It is, it's, oh my god, I'm going to mispronounce this guy's name. Brant Queeth. I think that's his name. Brant Queeth. But one of Utah's tight ends is out for the season, and it really sucks. I feel sad, honestly, but overall, yeah, Brant Queeth is out for the season, as he basically says the road to recovery begins, and this was 13 hours ago. So he sent this yesterday. So for Utah, it's going to be interesting to see how they'll take on UCLA. I really think UCLA has what it takes to beat Utah, but I think Utah is just going to have a little bit more firepower. The good thing for UCLA is that they get to play Utah not in Salt Lake City. They get to play Utah at the Rose Bowl, and I think that could be the biggest advantage for UCLA. That said, I think Utah might squeak out a win, and I have to be realistic here. I really think Utah is kind of the class of the Pac-12. Them and, well, at least for the Pac-12 South, but them and USC are basically my top two for who will win the Pac-12 South. But here's my thing. They obviously won in Arizona State, but Arizona State's kind of a hot mess as of right now. It's going to be difficult for Utah to win. You saw what they did against Florida. They laid an egg and wound up losing to Florida, which was unranked at the time. I don't know how they'll fare against UCLA. I think I'm going to go with Utah 28, UCLA 20. I'm probably going to reverse jinx the Bruins, but I think Cam Rising puts together a solid matchup. I really think, well, not a solid matchup, but a solid game overall. I really think that this is kind of Utah's chance to pull further and further ahead of the Pac-12 South, because the Pac-12 South is such an interesting race, just because have they gotten rid of the entirety of the Pac-12 South and Pac-12 North? Either way, if that's the case, then they're obviously going to want to pull away from UCLA, because this is the battle of 2-0 teams in conference. Both of these teams are obviously trailing USC, which is currently 3-0. But overall, I think Utah barely pulls out the win. But I think UCLA is for real, and I don't think any team is going to want to sleep on UCLA. UCLA is 5-0, and they have a chance to be 6-0, and it's just amazing of what Chip Kelly has done for the program. They could be bowl eligible by the time Saturday ends, and that would be quite amazing. It would basically show the grit and resolve of UCLA under Chip Kelly. But I have Utah winning this one just barely. I think UCLA will keep it very close. Heck, I think UCLA forces Utah to win on a game-winning drive. But I think UCLA comes up short, but it will be a valiant effort. But knowing my luck, I probably will have jinxed UCLA, or not jinxed UCLA, reverse jinxed UCLA and jinxed Utah, and now UCLA is going to win by like 100. We'll see what happens. If I had a dime for every time I incorrectly predicted something, I would basically be a rich man. Anyway, that's going to do it for UCLA versus Utah. Going over to USC versus Washington State. So before we get on into that matchup, UCLA was able to get by the Sun Devils of Arizona State 42-25. The bad news is for UCLA, they did not cover. I am disappointed. They won by only 17. The betting line was USC being a 24.5 point favorite. So unfortunately, USC did not cover. I am disappointed, but they didn't cover last week, so we'll give USC a break. Like, this matchup against Arizona State was so ugly, and it was at the Coliseum, which makes matters even worse. USC was up 14-7. They eventually go up 21-10, and Arizona State manages to end the first half with a touchdown, or the second quarter with a touchdown, and USC is only up 21-17. And I'm like, this can't be right. USC is not crushing Arizona State. Arizona State is bad, dude. This is a team that does not have Jaden Daniels anymore. This is a team that I think just recently fired Herm Edwards, their head coach, or their longtime head coach. Either way, it was very surprising to see USC just struggling against Arizona State. But then they finally kicked it into overdrive as the run game basically started to take over as Travis Dye ran rampant. And then Caleb Williams had himself an okay game. I use the term okay because even though he had 348 passing yards, because unfortunately the poor dude suffered his first interception of the season. I want to say the ESPN commentators were basically the ones that jinxed him. They were all saying, "Oh, Caleb Williams hasn't thrown an interception all season so far." Throws interception in the third quarter. Thanks, ESPN. Yeah, but overall, it was a solid win for UCLA. It wasn't as convincing as I thought it would be, but hey, it's at least a win. Like, look at what they did the previous week against Oregon State. They had to win super ugly. This week, USC is back at home, or remains at home, in the Coliseum against Washington State. Now, Washington State is kind of underrated. This was a team that nearly beat Oregon. They upset Wisconsin. I want to say that Washington State is kind of the real deal. Their defense, I think, is what is their selling point. I think Washington State defensively is a little underrated. Their offense, it's kind of good. They obviously crushed Cal. They put up 41 against Oregon, though that last touchdown kind of came on somewhat of a bad beat. And then they beat Colorado State, not really that big of a deal. And then this is a team that barely beat Idaho, but then they beat Wisconsin when they were ranked at the time. So, looking at this little matchup right here, USC is a 13-point favorite. Based on how they played against Arizona State, I think USC can win. Here's something that USC cannot do. They cannot look ahead to next week against Utah. That is going to be their big showdown right there. But if USC takes care of business against Washington State, then it'll have a whole lot of meaning because the winner of that matchup will probably win the Pac-12 South. For USC, the target on their back continues to grow bigger and bigger as I think Washington State is going to give them a battle. I really think Washington State is kind of this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde team. I'm just hoping the Mr. Hyde part of them doesn't come out. I'm sorry, not the Dr. Jekyll side of things. Either way, I just hope that Washington State doesn't play their best. I feel USC is ready for this. I'm going to say the Trojans win. What's a respectable score for Washington State? I'm going to say USC wins 35-17. I think that's respectable just because it's not a bad score. For USC being a high-powered offense, that's kind of what I expect. I think the defense has been stepping up quite well. They only allowed 8 points in the second half against Arizona State. I think their defense is starting to become better. The first half didn't really do it much justice just because Arizona State always goes in with that nothing to lose but lot to gain mentality. I think a lot of these teams are going to come in with that nothing to lose but lot to gain mentality whenever they play USC or any of these big-time teams. I think it's going to be a tricky matchup. I think it's going to take USC pulling themselves out of the quicksand in the second half to eventually finish off the Cougars. But I really think Washington State is underrated, but I got USC winning this one. There's no doubt USC wins this one. If they find a way to lose, then we can get rid of the narrative of USC is going to the college football playoff. So that is pretty much going to do it for USC. Jumping over to San Diego State. Okay, well, we've got some good news and bad news for San Diego State. The good news for the Aztecs is that they played Boise State super tough in the first half. They were up 13-7 at halftime. That's the very good news. The bad news is San Diego State forgot there was a second half. They allowed 35 unanswered points as they lost 35-13. Here's the sad part. They didn't score any offensive touchdowns. Their only touchdown of the game was actually by a blocked punt as Tyler Shavers blocked the punt and returned it for a touchdown, which was very awesome. But unfortunately for San Diego State, that's kind of where the buck stopped, as their offense was just, yet again, was so inept. They had a total of 114 yards. Boise State had not one, not double, not triple, but hold on. I think they had nearly quadruple the amount of... Yeah, they had almost quadruple the amount of total yards that San Diego State had. They had just a little under 4 times the amount of overall yards against San Diego State. They had 450 yards total. What does that tell you about San Diego State? They are so offensively inept. It's so disgusting. I seriously cannot take them running the ball like 95% of the time. And they don't even run the ball that well. Boise State ran the ball so great. They had 316 yards. San Diego State had 81. San Diego State only had 33 passing yards. And keep in mind, this was a Boise State team who saw its quarterback enter the transfer portal, and they still lost. It's so disappointing. I just don't get it, dude. Hank Bachmeier entered the transfer portal before this game happened, and now Boise State eventually plays it as if nothing happened. I understand it's at Boise, but there's no excuse for San Diego State to be playing this low below their competition. I'm disgusted by this. I really cannot take San Diego State and their inept play calling. Like, if this is what's going to be San Diego State, I'm afraid if this is San Diego State against the best team or one of the best teams in the Mountain West Conference, I'm afraid to see what they're going to do the rest of the way. I really am. I mean, Hawaii is 1-4, but if San Diego State continues to play like this offensively, the defense can only do so much. But if their defense or their offense continues to play like this, I feel they'll be finishing far below. They'll be finishing lower in the Mountain West Conference than expected. I'm really terrified to see what can happen with San Diego State going forward. Like, this is ridiculous, dude. Like, how are they continuing to put out wet fart offenses? They make the Denver Broncos look competent. But I digress. So like I said, this week San Diego State has Hawaii. I'm not even going to bother trying to predict this just because I think San Diego State, it's so tough to predict San Diego State. I'm going to say they win 17-14 this week. I don't care. San Diego State's going to win. They're going to win ugly, and they're winning 17-14. That's my final answer, and if they don't win, then they might as well just punt the rest of the season. Just because it only gets tougher from here on out. Even Fresno State, which is 1-3, that's going to be a tricky matchup. UNLV is improved. San Jose State is really good. And Air Force is probably going to be another big-time matchup. I just don't see San Diego State rebounding from this and winning the Mountain West Conference. I'm sorry, but this is the truth. They're already falling behind in the Mountain West Conference. UNLV's 2-0. San Jose State is 1-0. So San Diego State, it's either they win and salvage whatever little hope they have in terms of winning the Mountain West Division, or they might as well just kick and scream in a tank the rest of the way. Sorry, but that is the truth. And then jumping on over to some San Diego football. So the Toreros, after not having a game against Stetson due to Hurricane Ian, they played Drake on Saturday at 11 a.m. This will be on ESPN3, by the way. Drake is 0-5. San Diego is 1-3. I got the Toreros winning. I'm not even going to bother. I can't be bothered to predict a score just because I'm going to be honest, I don't know too much about the Toreros, other than the fact that they keep finding ways to lose in San Diego fashion. I thought the Chargers were bad when it came to that, but I digress. And then over to Cal Poly. Cal Poly lost to Sacramento State 49-21. Kind of expected that as Cal Poly plays Northern Arizona. I guess I got Cal Poly winning this one. I feel it might be a little ugly, but we'll see what happens. So that's pretty much that when it comes to college football. Now for high school football. So tonight, the biggest matchup in terms of all of high school football is here. Mater Dei versus St. John Bosco at Santa Ana Stadium. It's going to be a barn burner. This game was actually offered to be played at SoFi Stadium, but I think Mater Dei turned it down just so that they could play at at the Santa Ana Bowl, which is basically their home sweet home. In addition to that, whatchamacallit, all the tickets got sold out the first day. On Monday, it was basically said that the tickets were sold out by the time, I want to say like maybe 11 a.m. happened. But I think more tickets were put out courtesy of the faculty. But overall, this just goes to show that it's going to be a big-time game. And this game is going to be featured on all Bally Sports. All Bally Sports? Bally Sports? Bally Sports. Bally Sports. All Bally Sports stations. So it's basically going to be a nationwide event on Bally Sports. So if you're not at the game, definitely watch on Bally Sports. I sadly will not be able to watch just because I have other plans, but shame on me. I know I deserve Dum Dum of the Week, but I'll try to find updates on Twitter. It's going to be a real good game. Fun fact about modern day's quarterback Elijah Brown, he has not lost a start in his tenure as the Monarchs quarterback, and he's only a junior. You have to take it back to the COVID year when he went 5-0, and then obviously Modern Day ran the table last year. I don't know how many games they played, but I want to say it was about like 13. And then they've won 6 games this season, so I think he's like 24-0 from what I saw. But this year is going to be a great challenge just because at the time of this recording, St. John Bosco is the number 1 team in the nation with Modern Day right behind him. Whoever wins this is basically going to be the number 1 seed going into the CIF Southern Section Division I playoffs, unless, of course, Bosco and Modern Day get tripped up along the way. But I don't think that's going to happen. At least not for Modern Day. I mean, I think they'll probably tear down their competition. Though they did have a little bit of trouble beating Jay Serra, but Jay Serra is so underrated. I've seen Jay Serra play. They have some big boys on the offensive and defensive line, and then their run game is so dynamic. Passing game is okay. I don't think it's bad, but their run game is so complementary with the running back duo. With their running back duo, is what I meant to say. But I really think Modern Day and St. John Bosco is going to be a major barn burner. I wonder if this should be played on ESPN or ESPNU or ESPN3 or ESPN2. I don't care, but at least it's going to be on Bally Sports all over the place. So I'm really looking forward to St. John Bosco Modern Day, and best of luck to both teams. I don't have a dog in this fight. I picked Modern Day to win, but I would not be surprised if Bosco won. And definitely expect me to talk about this with Larry B on 3 and Out College Edition tomorrow. So that's going to do it for the gist of high school football. I didn't really want to talk too much about it just because I didn't want to bore most of y'all to death. And I mainly cover Southern Section football and not like San Diego section, so I didn't want to be too impartial to the other schools, or the other sections, but that's basically it for some high school football. We'll take ourselves a quick little break. When we come back, we've got some MLB, MLS, NWSL to discuss. And then we also got the Dum Dum of the Week. We've got 3 of them things. Keep it locked here. You are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Locke.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
What's up, everybody? This is Teran Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunder Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
And we are back with the second half of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our shows, such as 3 and Out with Larry B, as well as Fast Break with David Crooks and Darius Luck. And then obviously check out Set Point with yours truly, myself, Teran Rodriguez. Set Point just recently celebrated its 3-year anniversary. And honestly, I can't believe it's been 3 years already. But enough about volleyball. Let's get on into some more. Let's get back into the Southern California sports swing of things. So we're just gonna jump on into the MLB, just because we don't really have much to talk about for everything. Well, not like everything, but we don't have much to talk about in terms of that. The playoffs are underway. The Padres face the Mets as the Padres made the playoffs. Yay! The problem is they're the 5 seed, and they're going to be playing the Mets, which are the 4 seed. And all of the games are going to... So here's the wild card format. So it's best 2 out of 3, which I think is cool. But here's the thing. All of the games are going to be at the higher seed, which I think is a little ridiculous. I think it's best 2 out of 3, and then the divisional round I think is like 3 out of 5, I want to say. And then I think it's like 4 out of 7. I'm not entirely certain. Like, the playoff format changes like every freaking year, and it really boggles my mind and really bothers me. But for the Padres, they are hitting the road to the Big Apple to take on the Mets in a best 2 out of 3 series. So here's the thing for the Padres. all that hard work of not having Fernando Tatis Jr., of having Juan Soto struggle, and basically being up and down, has come to this. Basically, they're going to have to come up big. And whoever wins this series will get to face the Dodgers in the divisional round. And that's going to be an even tougher matchup right there. So, for the Padres, they're really going to have to buckle down. They're going to have to see the baseball as a beach ball and just hit it as best as they can. And their pitching really has to come up big. This is the battle of two, I wouldn't say two cursed franchises, but two teams that are really trying to do well for their respective city. The Mets being the little brother of the Yankees, and then the Padres being technically the quote-unquote little brother of the Dodgers, even though they haven't won a World Series, but I digress on that. So, for the Padres, I think they're starting to play better, and the fact that they went from possible borderline not being able to win a wild card spot to eventually make it to the wild card is quite something, especially without Fernando Tatis Jr. Also, got to remember, they're playing the Mets. This is a Mets team that always seems to find ways to lose. Take, for example, their NL East chances of winning the whole thing. The Mets had a 10.5 game lead over the Atlanta Braves, and they led throughout 178 games in the NL East. The Mets eventually lost it, and they're basically the wild card. That sucks just because the Braves are good, I'll give them that much, and let's just also say that the Braves are the reigning World Series champion, and they are indeed very good. However, it does not mean that this is basic. It does not mean that anything is guaranteed. Like, you basically have to go out there and you actually have to earn it. And the Braves pretty much earned it. I could not believe that the Mets lost their NL East crown. I just could not believe that. It's like, how? But there's a good reason why I'm not high on the Mets. I really just don't trust the Mets. I understand that they have good players on their team, but I don't think they go deep enough. I think they'll run into the buzzsaw that is the Dodgers, and even if they get to the Dodgers, I don't know if they can go further than that. I just think that the Astros are tough, and then the Braves, that could be an interesting matchup. I just think that the Mets kind of meet their match in either the wild card round or the divisional round. I just think that the Dodgers should have their number. Yes, the Dodgers kind of had a rocky end to their season, though they did win 111 games, which is a new franchise record. But they kind of had a little trouble with the Colorado Rockies. However, I think the Dodgers did something that I think most people tend to forget about. They're getting the bad losses out of the way. I think the Dodgers are getting the bad losses out of their way, and now they are trying to make sure they don't lose when it truly matters. Just because 111 wins is really cool and all. It really is awesome. However, it's not going to mean anything unless, of course, you win the World Series. Otherwise, you're basically the Peyton Manning of the MLB. In terms of the playoffs, that is. But overall, it's going to be a fun little postseason. It's going to be televised on national TV, as it's going to be on ESPN, and then I think it's going to be on ABC. I think it's really going to be cool. I'm going to try as best as I can to tune into the playoff games, but it's just so tough for me, just because A, baseball's a slow sport, B, I'm just extremely busy, and C, heaven knows if I'll have enough time to watch, but we'll see. I'll at least try to keep myself updated on my phone. So that is that for the Dodgers and the Padres. As for the Angels, there's nothing really to talk about. They got swept in their final series of the season, as they got swept by the freaking Oakland A's. I could not believe they got swept by the worst team in the MLB. That's just terrible, dude. And on Kurt Suzuki? It's Kurt something, but either way, they got swept by the freaking Oakland A's. I just could not believe that. It's like, that basically describes the Angels season in a nutshell. Losing to the freaking Oakland A's. It's just sad, dude. And I understand that the Angels had a lot of injuries and their pitching is complete donkey-doo. But it's like, Kurt Suzuki, that's his name. Kurt Suzuki was the one that retired from the Angels. And I wish him the best in retirement. I'm happy for him. What I'm not happy about is that the Angels basically send him off with a loss, which, thanks, Angels. Great job. Except not really. So, Angels have a lot to address in the offseason. They did sign a new manager to the Phil Nevin as a one-year deal as the Dodgers manager or skipper or coach or whatever you like to call him. He's basically the field manager, and basically he is basically the head honcho in terms of the field, in terms of the Angels. So for Phil Nevin, it's going to be another year with the Angels as their skipper. I'm just interested to see who else they might get, as I imagine Nevin will probably still be on the staff unless the Angels find a really big name. Obviously, the Joe Madden experiment backfired, but who else can the Angels get that could, like, maybe help them get back to the promised land? Because with the Seattle Mariners making the playoffs, the Angels, unfortunately, have the distinct and disfortunate honor of having the longest playoff drought in the MLB. Great job, Angels. Way to not freaking get pitching, and way to not be managed properly. Anyway, so that's going to do it for the MLB. I'm really excited for the Dodgers and the Padres. The Angels have a lot to work on in terms of the offseason. We'll see, though. I'm just going to also say this. I'm really going to feel sad for whoever, if the Padres do get past the Mets in the wild card round, I'm going to feel really sad for whoever loses the Dodgers and Padres series in the divisional round, if that happens. But overall, I think it's going to be a great little run. I really want to see the Dodgers like shut those people up that say that their World Series championship is from 2020 was nothing more than a Mickey Mouse title. I'm really sick of that. I really just want people to like, it is an actual championship. Like, please stop. Please stop trying to take away the hard work that the Dodgers had back in 2020. Just please. And I'll continue to fight for the Dodgers in terms of, people degrading their 2020 World Series championship. I think it's still for real, and no one else can tell me otherwise. Okay, that's going to do it for the MLB portion of the show. So let's jump on into some MLS. And my goodness, the Galaxy clinched a spot in the playoffs. I can't believe this. They actually did it. The Madmen did it. They actually clinched a spot in the playoffs. I'm stunned by this, just because everyone and their mom said that the Galaxy choke in the second half and they wind up collapsing. Fortunately for the Galaxy, they tied Real Salt Lake 1-1, and they clinched their spot in the playoffs, which made me happy. Even better, they actually are in fourth place as opposed to being in seventh place. It's a good and a bad thing that they're currently in fourth place. Wait, is that right? It's a good and a bad thing that they're in fourth place. The good thing is that they'll get a home playoff game. Like, if the playoffs started today, they would be at home against Nashville. But the bad thing is they'd be on the path of LAFC, which would mean El Tráfico in terms of the playoffs. Something else that happened in terms of the MLS is that LAFC won the Commissioner's Shield, which was super awesome. And I really got to give props to LAFC for winning the Commissioner's Shield. However, it doesn't mean anything if you don't win the MLS Cup. Winning the Commissioner's Shield is awesome and all because they had the most points and the best record, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't win the MLS Cup. So LAFC, the job is not finished. You got to go out there and win an MLS Cup. Back to the Galaxy. The Galaxy have one more matchup against the Houston Dynamo. I want to say a win for them, could put them as best as 3 unless Dallas wins. So a win coupled with a Dallas loss puts them at number 3, which would be the highest they could finish. The lowest they could finish is 7, as if they lose and then Nashville wins, and then Nashville wins or ties, and then Portland wins, and then Minnesota wins, then the Galaxy could be 7th, which would have them hitting the road to take on Austin FC. But overall, I'm just happy to see the Galaxy back in the playoffs. They really had me concerned, but I'm so happy to see the Galaxy in the playoffs just because, well, this is a team that has been ridiculed, and this is a storied and promising program. The thing for the Galaxy is this. They had high expectations. Last year, obviously, they came oh so close to making the playoffs. They were in the top 7 the entire way, and then on the final day of the season, they finished outside of the top 7. And then this year, they came in with a whole lot of expectations. They did really well in the first half of the season, and then the second half, they were collapsing, they were losing. There were just lots of concerns of this team was not going to make the playoffs. Fortunately, they weathered the storm, and they were able to pull out wins, and they were also able to not lose when it truly mattered. So overall, the Galaxy earned their spot in the MLS playoffs, which made me happy. Now let's see you boys try to win an MLS Cup. My hope is that I hope the Galaxy and LAFC are not on the same path. Just because I'd love to see El Tráfico, but only if it's in the Western Conference Finals. If it's not in the Western Conference Finals, then I'm going to be very sad. Much like the Dodgers and the Padres meeting in the divisional round. But the best case scenario for the Galaxy would be avoiding LAFC until the final. Though it doesn't mean that the Galaxy are safe from everyone else. Like, the Galaxy still have their inconsistencies. So time will tell what happens on this weekend when the Galaxy and Dallas FC play their matches. Jumping over to some NWSL action. So, to the NWSL, Angel City FC needed San Diego Wave FC to win, and then they also needed to beat the Chicago Red Stars, and then they would be into the playoffs. Unfortunately for Angel City FC, it didn't happen. So jumping over to Friday, San Diego and North Carolina tied 0-0 as the two actually played at Snapdragon Stadium. They didn't play at Torero Stadium, which was my bad. So they're starting to play more at Snapdragon Stadium, which is basically the home of San Diego State. I think it's really good that they're playing at Snapdragon Stadium and that San Diego State is allowing them to play and have access to that field. So I just think that Snapdragon Stadium is really awesome. I just think Torero Stadium is just a little too compact for them. But Snapdragon Stadium is for real. So unfortunately for Wave FC, they tied with North Carolina. And as a result, Angel City sadly missed out on the playoffs. But here's what happened with Angel City. It wouldn't have mattered because Angel City wound up losing to the Chicago Red Stars 2-0 in Chicago. So technically I was kind of right when I said that the matchup did decide who was going to make the playoffs between Chicago and Angel City. It's just that Chicago is now the last team to make it into the NWSL playoffs, as the final top six feature OL Reign as the Commissioner's Shield. I don't know what the token is for. They're the Commissioner's winner. They have the best record in the NWSL. So OL Reign had the best record with 40 points as they stomped on Orlando 3-0 this past weekend. Portland, on the other hand, they tied with Gotham of all teams. Yikes! I mean, I guess they also had the controversy that happened within their program or within their team. I'm not going to go over it, but they also had that happen to them. But they finished with 39 points. San Diego, despite tying with Houston, they finished with 36 points. Believe it or not, they actually tied in terms of record, too. Both San Diego and Houston had 10 wins, 6 draws, and 6 losses, as well as 36 points. I guess the next tiebreaker was goal differential, which favored San Diego over Houston, 11-8. So after Houston, which finished 4th, the Kansas City Current finished 5th as the Current lost to Racing Louisville 1-0. And then Chicago, which beat Angel City, but saw North Carolina tie with Wave FC, finished 6th as they finished 1 point ahead of the Courage. My goodness. So I feel bad for North Carolina fans or North Carolina Courage fans, but c'est la vie. You get to join Angel City on the couch of shame. So in the playoffs, we will get to see, what's their face, San Diego, Wave FC, take on the other team, the Chicago Red Stars. I want to say that's next week. I want to say the two teams are facing each other next week. I have not gotten the playoff schedule as of right now, which makes me sad. But all I can tell you is that Wave FC and Chicago are facing one another, and I am really excited for it. I really can't wait. According to Google, I guess okay, I found it, y'all. The San Diego Wave FC is playing on October 16th, so that is not going to be for another week. So basically, Wave FC plays, they basically get this weekend off, and then they get a majority of next week off, and then they play Sunday against Chicago. It is going to be at San Diego, so that is the luxury of that. But for them, it's going to be tricky to take down the Red Stars. However, I am confident that they will be able to do so. Yes, they did not get the bye. Yes, they sadly missed out on a top 2 seed just because of inconsistencies. But that's all of San Diego sports. The good thing is that they get a home playoff game, unlike the Padres. No offense, Padres. They get to play Chicago at home, and I am very excited for it. I can't wait to see what Wave FC has to offer. Wave FC, you're kind of our only hope in terms of San Diego winning a professional championship. I understand we had like professional lacrosse teams from San Diego winning, but Wave FC, you have to do San Diego proud, please. I'm not confident in the Padres because they have to go through the Mets and then they have to go through the Dodgers. But Wave FC, I know you could do it. Make us proud. Make Dean Spanos regret moving from San Diego to Los Angeles. I digress, though. So that is basically going to do it for the NWSL portion of the show. As for Angel City FC, it's a tough way for them to go out. I just really am sad that they went out like that. It would have been even worse if they found out that Wave FC won and then they wound up losing against Chicago. But let's say Wave FC did win and then they had the all or nothing match. Basically, it was just it would have been a belly flop. And then, but what's worse is that they didn't deny Chicago their chance at making the playoffs. So Chicago was obviously rooting for Wave FC to either win or draw, and then Chicago took care of business. But for Angel City FC, I gotta tip my cap to them. They really performed well this season. Remember, this is a team that lost Kristen Press due to injury. She tore her ACL, and it was just not fun for her. And I hope that Angel City FC comes back stronger next season. I think they have potential. We'll just have to wait and see what happens with them going forward. But I think the future is bright for Angel City FC. Finishing 8th obviously is a bummer, but it's not too terrible. You look at some of the teams that missed the playoffs. There were a few teams that were a lot worse. But I think Angel City will be back next year, and I'm happy their debut in terms of the NWSL was a promising one. It didn't have playoffs, sadly, but you can only go up from here. So that's going to do it for the NWSL portion of the show. Before we get on out of here, we have to go over the Dum Dum of the Week. So the Dum Dum of the Week award is basically an award that I love to give out to people or organizations or anyone that decides to do something really, really dumb. And no one is safe from this award. Basically, anyone can get this award. And honestly, I really think, no one is safe. The neighbor's dog could win the award. Not my family, though. Not my family unless they really kind of deserve it. But no one is safe from this award. I'm just going to say that right now. And I actually have three Dum Dum of the Week, so 3 Dum Dums of the Week awards to give out. So we'll start off with probably the smallest one. So whatever you see on Twitter, this is basically another Twitter happening. So basically, I have no idea who this person is. Apparently, this is probably some little like copy pasta account or that has like over 55,000 followers, but it's like a political copy pasta account. It's ridiculous and it's frustrating. So this copy pasta account basically was like copying and pasting. For those of you that don't know what copy pasta is, it's basically copy paste all over the place. It was basically just saying, and I don't mean to sound political, but basically it said, and I quote, "Want to prevent voter fraud, make them give us a receipt for our ballot or a copy of the ballot after it went through the machine. On mail, in ballots, send a receipt through the mail, blah, 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 blah." So they were basically sending this all over the place. I think they were sending this all over Harrisburg. I don't know. And then this copy pasta person actually copy and pasted this onto the Harrisburg Senators, I think it's like a single A baseball team, but basically the copy pasta person copy and pasted this onto the Harrisburg Senators. Now, I'm actually going to tell you all who the Harrisburg Senators is, just because, no, they're not anything that has to do with government. That's a big fat no. No. So the Harrisburg Senators are a AA affiliate of the Washington Nationals. I kind of had a feeling they were the AA affiliate of the Washington Nationals. I just didn't want to guess. But anyway, the Harrisburg Senators, AA affiliate of the Washington Nationals, are not a government official name. And then this copy pasta person who is spewing political baloney sausage, she decides to basically copy and paste onto a reply in terms of the Harrisburg Senators. And then the Harrisburg Senators Twitter account responded in a quote tweet, "Ma'am, we are a baseball team." Great job, Harrisburg Senators. Thank you for putting that person in their place and for basically ratioing her. I'm sorry, I'm not the biggest political guy, and I'm not going to go too much into politics and whatnot, but it's like, you don't need to be mixing sports with politics. And the Harrisburg Senators did not do anything wrong. So for the person, I'm not even going to give out their name. I'm just going to call them the copy pasta person. To the copy pasta person who basically was copying and pasting this whole voter fraud avoidance thing, who none of us asked about, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient number 1.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Sorry about that. But yeah, that is the first Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient. Now we get on into the bigger Dum Dum of the Weeks. And okay. So this actually happened at the USC Arizona State football game. And oh boy. Okay, let me just say this. I am a big USC guy. I truthfully like USC. I don't mind UCLA. I don't hate UCLA. I just like USC a whole lot more. I grew up with UCLA, but for me, this kind of irked me a little. So, okay, it irked me, but it PO'd USC fans a lot. Oh, no, I'm sorry, no. It irked me, and it PO'd a lot of USC fans, but it made all of USC haters and UCLA fans super duper happy. So, this happened at the UCLA Arizona State game. So, there was this guy. So I have no idea who this guy was, but there was this guy by the name, this player, the Arizona State player by the name of Nesta Jade Silvera. Okay, so I'm not one to like put down any players, but what this guy did, there's no defending. So what happened was Nesta, I guess Caleb Williams was going back into the game after USC went back in offensively after the defense got a stop and after the kickoff or punt. And then what Nesta does is he has a bottle of water and then he takes it and he squirts Caleb Williams, the quarterback, in the face with it. And you cannot tell me that this was an accident. This Nesta Jade Silvera guy squirts Caleb Williams in the face with a bottle of water. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear, it was an accident. No. You either squirt him or you don't squirt him. You're either drinking the bottle of water through your mouth, or you're squirting it all over yourself, but you cannot tell me this was an accident. This dude, Nesta, decided to squirt my man Caleb Williams with a bottle of water. Now, I understand water is harmless, but what happened, karma got my boy Nesta. So, this happened, later in the USC-Arizona State game, Caleb Williams keeps the ball for himself, tucks it and runs. He's trying to get more yardage, and then he sees Nesta Jade Silvera, the guy that squirted him with the bottle of water a little while ago. He actually tries to bring him down himself, but then Caleb Williams, being the shiftiest guy on the planet, or one of the shiftiest quarterbacks on the planet, he stops and then makes my boy Nesta miss and fall all the way to the ground. Let me just reiterate that again. Caleb Williams was running with the ball, then he sees Nesta Silvera. Silvera, unfortunately, tries to tackle Caleb Williams, and then Silvera goes all the way down to the ground, misses Williams, and then he's basically eating the turf. It's not really supposed to be that funny, but honestly, Nesta Silvera got what he deserved. You squirted Caleb Williams with a bottle of water, and then he juked you to the point where you fell to the ground and you ate the turf. He didn't really actually eat the turf, but he fell to the ground, and he got shacked and fooled. My man got what he deserved, and there's no defending this. You can't just squirt someone with the bottle. Caleb Williams was nice enough to basically stand up to himself, and he didn't say this in a mean way, but he said, I needed the hydration, and that was basically a professional response to what happened with Nesta basically squirting him with the water. But my man Nesta Silvera, you can't be squirting quarterbacks with water, because eventually karma's going to come back to get you, and Caleb Williams made you pay for that. So I hate to do this. I don't like doing this to football players, but you can't be dissing my quarterback like that. You can't be squirting my boy Caleb Williams with water like that. So as for you squirting Caleb Williams with water and eventually getting juked to the point where you fell to the ground and had to eat that turf, not literally though, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week award recipient number 2.
You are so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
Alright, now we gotta get into the final Dum Dum of the Week. And this was I actually found out about this, but I gotta thank my girl Angela Winstead, aka AZ Cards Princess, for informing me of this. Alright, so this let's take it back to the Rams-Niners game. So, I don't know who was the one. I don't know when this happened. I think it was during the third quarter when it was obviously when the Rams were trailing. I don't know if it was when they were down 23-9. I think it was they were down 14-9. And then there was this guy who came onto the field, and he literally was running onto the field. It was a fan, and he had a pink smoke bomb. I guess he was doing a gender reveal, but then he ran onto the field, and then he basically He basically was running onto the field with a pink smoke bomb or smoke detector. Well, not smoke detector, but like a smoke screen. Either way, he was just stopping play to the point where he was running onto the field and security was trying to chase him. So eventually, even though the Rams were doing so bad defensively in terms of tackling, Bobby Wagner had his best tackle of the night as he tackled the guy who had the pink smoke screen. And that was pretty much that. But it doesn't end there. You all thought that I was going to end it right there with the guy that had this pink smoke screen getting tackled to the ground by Bobby Wagner. This dude that got tackled by Bobby Wagner with the pink smoke screen, this dude filed a police report for basically assault. Let me say that again. The dude that got tackled, the dude with the pink smoke screen that got tackled by Bobby Wagner, he filed a police report for assault. Okay, you can't file a police report for assault just because what happened to you? You trespassed onto the field when you're not supposed to, you stopped play, and you forced Bobby Wagner's hand. If you weren't getting tackled by Bobby Wagner, you were going to get tackled by someone on the Niners or the Rams or by security. You brought this upon yourself, buddy. He basically stopped you. And unless he broke any bone in your body, and this wasn't even inadvertently, Bobby Wagner was just stopping you just so security would not have to deal with you. But because of you basically are the one that forced Bobby Wagner's hand. If this police report goes through, which I highly doubt it will, I don't know what to say. But Bobby Wagner is innocent of all charges. You were the dum-dum that decided to run onto the field with a pink smoke screen, and you asked to get tackled. You brought this attention off to yourself. And for doing so, you basically are facing police charges for trespassing. Kevin Harlan said it on, I forget what radio station he said it on, but he said it best. You are going straight to the slammer because that, my friend, you cannot trespass onto the field. You cannot run onto the field. It never goes well for you unless you have a time dilation portal. But that doesn't exist. Either way, my man who had the pink smoke screen, who ran onto the field, got tackled by Bobby Wagner, and filed a police report just because Bobby Wagner tackled you, just because he wanted to stop you. There's no other and better way to say this, but you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient number 3.
You're so dumb. You're so dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. What are these people that run onto the field going to learn? It never ends well for you. Whether you get tackled by security, whether you get tackled by a football player, it's never going to end well for you. And for this guy to file a police report just because he got tackled by Bobby Wagner, all because he wanted to stop you from running onto the field, you're killing me. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time to get on out of here, because I got to get me some food, and my voice is starting to get shot. You dig? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate you all tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I really do appreciate you. Big shout out to Patty Bax, who is listening. She told me she was listening, and she loved that I was talking about football. I really do appreciate you tuning in. Definitely check out the Buffalo Huddle with Patty Bax every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Definitely do check out all of our shows on IE Sports Radio. Definitely keep a lookout for the next episode of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, which will be next week, unless of course, something big happens, something comes up for me. But SoCal Supreme Sports Show will be back next week. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You have yourself a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy the SoCal Sports. Please don't do anything dumb, which will land you on Dum Dum the Week. I will see you Monday for Set Point at probably 5 p.m. Pacific Time, just because Chi-Town Weekly isn't going live that week. But until then, have a great rest of the weekend. Be safe, be smart, and remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace.